If you're Canadian trying to set up an Amazon FBA business, you probably have a lot of questions and concerns running through your head. I know because I've been there. How do you set up the business? What marketplace did you choose? How do you avoid getting taxed twice? Today, I'm gonna settle all those questions and more so you can get your FBA business started on the right foot.
I'm in the jungle. I'm in the Amazon. I'm in the jungle. I'm in the Amazon.
What's going on, fellow Canadians? JT Franco here, the no bullshit Amazon seller. And as you can tell by my shirt that proves my citizenship, I am a Canadian citizen. I've been in your shoes and I know the questions that run through your head when you're trying to start this business up. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of info out there for us, right? So I put this video together for you because I wish I had this when I started, just something that would knock down all the questions and the doubts that I had in my head, okay? So first of all, I am a Canadian that sells on Amazon, and I sell on Amazon.com, okay? And I'll talk about it in a second. And I've also helped many other I've helped a lot of people from the States, from all over the world, but also from Canada, do the same thing. So if you're actually a Canadian, I did put a link in the description that you can download my free quick start guide for Canadians. It's kind of be what I'm going to break down in this video, but if you want to download it and so you can have it, you can read it on your spare time or just as reference, then the link is going to be in the description. Okay. So the first thing I want to cover is which marketplace should you sell on and which marketplace can you sell on. So for some reason there's a misconception out there that you need to sell on Amazon.ca if you are a Canadian, and that is not true, okay? You can sell on Amazon.com, and I actually suggest that you sell on Amazon.com. Now I know if you are a Canadian that shops on Amazon, you have a Prime membership, you're used to Amazon.ca, and you want to sometimes people want to get the products on there so that they can tell their friends and family about it, but trust me, the reason to sell on .com is because there's way more upside. When you look at the marketplaces and the sizes of those marketplaces and you compare them, it's not even close, right? So Amazon.com is of course the main flagship Amazon marketplace. So there's more opportunity, there's more people, of course there are more sellers, so people think that means more competition, but it also means there's way more buyers because over 50% of American households have an Amazon Prime membership, and the same can't be said for Canada. And even if the same could be said for Canada, there's only 36 million people in our country and there's 327 million in the States. So it's basically 10 times more people, which means 10 times more opportunity for us to capture and generate more sales there. So that's why I always suggest to sell on the .com market, and then you can always branch out to .ca later once you actually get going and you have an understanding and maybe you want to start selling on that market and branching out to other markets more than just Canada, more than just US, and look at other market options as well, right? And I never suggest to start at both at the same time. You can do that, but it's just going to be more complicated, more complex, and more expensive because you now, instead of just having a product from China, shipping it to the States, you got to ship that to the States and to Canada, right? So now you're doing way more, you're doing double the work for not double the return. So definitely, the question is, what marketplace should you sell on? I always suggest starting with .com. So now the question becomes, when you set up your business, how should you set it up? So when you start selling on Amazon, you can just start as a sole proprietor, and that doesn't matter if you're in Canada, US, anywhere. You can just start selling as a sole proprietor. If you want to do that, that's okay. But right now I want to talk about LLC versus corporation. Now, a lot of Canadian sellers that want to sell on Amazon.com think they need to set up an American LLC, and I highly suggest not to do that, okay? Become a Canadian corporation. As a Canadian corporation, you are allowed to do business anywhere, right? So you can sell in the States, you can sell in the UK, you can sell in India, it doesn't matter. You don't need an LLC, a US LLC to sell in the US. The danger of creating a US LLC is now you're up for double taxation. As a Canadian corporation, you only need to be taxed in Canada, but if you set up an LLC, you're up for double taxation because you will be having to pay taxes because you are an American company. The company will need to pay taxes, and then when that money is withdrawn to yourself as a Canadian, you're gonna be paying taxes on that again. So if you were to just keep the money in the Canadian corporation, as a Canadian corporation, you are not paying double taxes to the IRS and the CRA. Now I do want to mention, as I just mentioned, anything taxes, I am not a tax professional, so make sure when you go about this, you consult a tax professional. I am no position to give legal or tax advice, okay, just a quick disclaimer. So This is not legal or tax advice. This is just me giving the general of what I know and from what my experiences are, okay? So if you are actually gonna go into business, make sure you have a tax professional set you up properly. Also, I do wanna mention, you can just start as a sole proprietor and then move up to a corporation later once you start getting traction, you start getting bigger, so you don't have to incorporate right away. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna talk about is banking. As a Canadian Amazon seller, it's not as easy as it seems to get money and get deposits from Amazon. Okay, when you're selling on Amazon.com, you need a US-based bank account. So that does not mean a cross-border bank account. So RBC, they have cross-border banking where you have a US account and you have two accounts for US funds and Canadian funds. That's not gonna work. You need an actual bank account that has a US location. Okay, so you can go to RBC, you can go to TD. They all have different branches in the States, but I use BMO Harris for my own account, right? So you can use BMO Harris. That just gives you a bank with a routing number that is attached to a US location so they can deposit the funds there. So when you start making money on Amazon, that's where they're gonna deposit the funds, right? And then you can either keep that there and keep that as US funds and then reinvest your profits that way, or then you can just send money back to yourself in Canada, however you want to structure that, okay? But you are gonna need a US banking account. Okay, so back to taxes a little bit. I covered how you can pay double taxes when you set up an LLC, but there's also ways that you're gonna have to pay taxes in the States as a corporation as well, and that is if you have what they call ETBUS, if you are engaged in trade or business in the United States. So this is if you have a physical location in the United States that is actually you own, like a warehouse or like an office is there, or if you have what they call a dependent agent. So a dependent agent is basically an employee. So if this is an employee of your company that does important work, basically a work that it would be considered an extension of yourself and not just like data entry kind of work. So if this is someone like a business partner or employee that is sourcing and stuff like that for you in the United States, then you may be subject to pay taxes in that state. However, there's also what is called independent agent. So an independent agent is maybe someone that works for you but is not part of your company. So say you hired another business in the state, you're working with an agency or something like that you are actually a client of theirs and they are not an employee of yours, then you're okay. Okay, so how does this work with Amazon FBA, with people at the warehouses, sorting our boxes and sorting our packages, okay? So basically, as Amazon FBA sellers, we are importing from China to the United States, right? And then at Amazon, the warehouses, Amazon's employees and robots are sorting and doing the picking and packing and sending shipments out for us. So they are not dependent agents of us, they are employees of Amazon. So we are okay on that front. We don't have to worry about ETBUS. So as long as you do not have a dependent agent or a physical location in the States that is actually under you or your corporation, then you are okay. So last is the EIN, the Employer Identification Number. What is it and do you need it? So yes, you are going to need to get an EIN when you start your business. When you create your Amazon seller account, you're going to need to submit a tax ID, and that's what the EIN is. Since we don't have a social security number because we're Canadian citizens, we don't have a tax identification in the States, we're going to need an EIN to tell the IRS, hey, this is a business, we are doing business, we have a presence in the United States, but we don't have a physical location, or we don't have a dependent agent. We're just a Canadian company doing business in the States. So when you get an EIN, you're just going to do some compliance. You're going to fill out yearly forms. The common one is 1120F, which basically says what I said. It's saying, hey, we have a presence, but we don't have any physical locations or holdings in the United States. So to get your EIN, you just need to go to the IRS website, or you can even call the IRS, and you can get that set up, and they'll send you that number pretty quickly. I think it's like a week or 2 weeks or whatever it is, and you'll get that set up, and then you can go ahead and start your account, and you're ready to go. So that's really all there is to it. It's not that hard, actually, right? There's a few mistakes that can make it bad if you make those mistakes, but really, if you watch this video and you download that free guide, then you'll be good to go. Also, I want to mention the only Amazon FBA course out there that has a module dedicated to Canadians, made by a Canadian, Empire Academy. Again, this is a worldwide course. It's for everybody. We've had success students from Australia, from the United States, from the UK, but I also did, because I'm a Canadian and it's close to my heart, I made a special module just for you guys. So Empire Academy, link down below if you're ready to get started today. All right, that's it I have for this video. If you want more, click that video right over there, click my face to subscribe, or click that masterclass box in the bottom corner. That's where I show how I was able to go from 0 to 6 figures in my first 6 months on Amazon as a high school dropout with no experience, no money, and I detail the entire process so you can go ahead and duplicate it like many of my success students have in the past. All right, that's it. I'm JT Franco. You're an empire builder. Never forget it, and also never forget that your empire awaits.